website. By participating in the sessions, all parties consent to being recorded on both audio and video. And with that now, I'm pleased to introduce Dr. Paul Kerns. Paul is the director of Argonne National Laboratory, one of the 10 national laboratories of the United States Department of Energy supporting the Net Zero World Initiative. Go ahead, Paul, turn your camera on and unmute yourself.
Thank you, Guenter, for that introduction. It's my pleasure to welcome you all to this pioneering event to advance the mission of the Net Zero World Initiative, partnering with countries to help implement their climate action plans and accelerate global transitions to net zero, resilient, and inclusive energy systems. I had the privilege of attending the official launch of the Net Zero World Initiative at COP26 last November. Secretary Granholm, Special Envoy for Climate John Kerry, Assistant Secretary Andrew Light, and the National Renewable Energy Laboratory Director Martin Keller were joined by energy ministers from the 6 founding partner countries: Argentina, Chile, Egypt, Indonesia, Nigeria, and Ukraine. Today, the Net Zero World Initiative includes 9 US government agencies and 10 DOE national laboratories, as Guenter mentioned, with growing support from philanthropic organizations to help these 6 partner countries achieve their net zero energy objectives. The progress made in such a short amount of time has been remarkable, and it continues this morning with this Net Zero World event. For today's workshop, with the International Atomic Energy Agency, we have brought together over 35 experts from partner countries to share experiences on energy systems-wide analysis, receive information on tools and resources, and identify areas for deeper technical and implementation support. Argonne is certainly proud to be among the Department of Energy national laboratories engaged in the Net Zero World Initiative. While each of the DOE labs has distinct objectives, we have a combined mission to solve pressing global challenges by translating basic science into innovative solutions. And this cross-lab team has unmatched energy and technology expertise, which can be applied in collaboration with Net Zero World partner countries in developing country-driven technical and investment plans, designing and implementing technology pilots, workforce development activities, and other critical actions needed to achieve near and long-term energy system decarbonization. We are honored to host this inaugural Net Zero World event that will serve as an anchor for future technical cooperation. And we are delighted to welcome the Net Zero World partner countries and our US government colleagues to this crucial dialogue. Now let me turn it back over to Guenter to announce our next speaker. Back to you, Guenter.
Thank you, Paul. So next, it is my honor to introduce to you Maria DiGiulian. Maria is the director of the International Science and Technology Collaboration at the US Department of Energy's Office of International Affairs. And she's also the Department of Energy lead of the Net Zero World Initiative, who's co-sponsoring our workshop today. We're honored to have her join us today. Go ahead, Maria, turn your camera on and remember to unmute yourself.
Great, thank you very much for that introduction, and good morning, good evening, and everything in between for those of you who are joining us today. I'm really honored to be included in this workshop today. And I want to especially, first of all, thank Clarice Kim for all of her hard work for making this event happen. She's really done an amazing job. As Dr. Kerns said, I'm Maria DiGiulian. I'm the Director for International Science and Technology Collaboration at the US Department of Energy. As you well know, DOE has a long and deep history and relationship with the IAEA, and I am thrilled that we have so many participants from so many countries here today. As President Biden conveyed at last year's General Conference, the IAEA is an indispensable multilateral tool. It fosters peace, health, prosperity, and sustainable development around the world. And Net Zero World is another tool in the toolbox for moving forward these same goals. It is a signature contribution to the President's Build Back Better World initiative. Secretary Granholm developed the idea for Net Zero World together with Special Presidential Envoy for Climate, Kerry, as a way to bring the DOE national labs to the forefront of the climate fight. Through targeted technical assistance and collaboration, Net Zero World works with partner countries to help them meet their goals for net zero emission, inclusive, equitable, and resilient energy systems. It marshals the forces of the US government and the national labs, as Dr. Kerns has said. There are 9 US government agencies and 10 DOE national labs collaborating with the 6 inaugural partners, Argentina, Chile, Egypt, Indonesia, Nigeria, and Ukraine, to build and execute energy system-wide and sector-specific decarbonization measures. Bringing these 10 labs together is really unprecedented in terms of collaboration among the labs, and we are very proud and excited that this has happened. It's an incredibly exciting program, and we are thrilled to hold our inaugural workshop in partnership with the IAEA. So thank you very much, and I hope that you all have a very productive and fun workshop. Thanks.
Thank you, Maria. And now it is my pleasure to introduce Henri Paillere. Henri is the head of the Planning and Economic Studies section at the International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, in Vienna, who is co-sponsoring our workshop as well. Henri's section assists IAEA member states in capacity building through training, technical assistance, and information exchange in various different fields of energy system analysis and planning, energy sector investment planning, and energy and environmental policy formulations. We're excited to have him join us today from Vienna. So go ahead, Henri, turn your camera on, and remember, unmute yourself.
Okay, thank you, Guenter. I hope you can see me and hear me.
Yes.
Thank you. So it's an honor for me to provide some opening remarks on behalf of the IAEA alongside the US Net Zero World Action Center. And I also take the opportunity to thank our US hosts and the US labs and institutions involved in this exciting initiative. In 2015, the international community adopted the Paris Agreement on Climate Change, pledging to hold the increase in global average temperature to less than 2 degrees above pre-industrial levels, and if possible, to limit it to 1.5 degrees before the end of the century. As the IPCC recalled a few weeks ago with the publication of the 6th assessment report on of the Working Group 3 on mitigation, this requires very ambitious and urgent efforts to reduce greenhouse gas emissions across all activities and sectors, and including a complete transformation of the energy sector to eliminate unabated fossil fuel production and use. In other words, the energy sector needs to become globally carbon neutral, with any CO2 emission offset by CO2 removal to reach net zero emissions by around the middle of the century. While there are multiple possible pathways for realizing this objective, long-term energy and climate scenarios identify 2 key elements. One is the extensive electrification of the economy with low carbon electricity from renewables, nuclear, and other low carbon sources. And 2, deployment of other low carbon energy carriers, such as heat and hydrogen, to help decarbonize the so-called hard to abate sectors in industry and transportation. The IAEA has been supporting its member states for several decades now, providing capacity building and energy planning to allow countries to map out their own transition to meet their energy needs. And the agency provides member states with a whole suite of energy planning tools, which will be presented later today by my colleague Mario Todt. With net zero commitments, the problem of finding a pathway to net zero emissions becomes heavily constrained and is a very challenging problem to solve. Some countries are considering the nuclear power option, some are not. It's likely that, as in any optimization problem, the more you constrain your problem, like net zero emission or limiting the choice of technologies, the more expensive your solution will be. And I strongly believe that all clean energy technologies will be needed to solve the net zero challenge in the most affordable way. Another dimension to be explored is the robustness of the solution to climate change impacts. For example, the effect of extreme weather patterns, heat waves, wind droughts on the energy system. Reliable, resilient, secure, and clean energy is what we're striving for. We've explored a few months ago in a publication entitled Nuclear Energy for a Net Zero World, which we released before COP26, the potential contribution of nuclear energy to the decarbonization of the energy sector, as an option to move away from unabated fossil fuels, to satisfy the huge demand for clean electricity, as a means to produce low carbon hydrogen at scale, and also for the contribution of nuclear investments to economic and social development. And I would say the latter is the last piece of the puzzle we need to solve. Energy transitions to net zero need to be just, need to create opportunities, economic growth and jobs, so as to leave no one behind. And fortunately, there is evidence that investing in clean technologies like renewables, like nuclear, has a high impact on GDPs, has a higher impact on GDPs than investments in fossil fuel technologies, as was shown last year by the International Monetary Fund in one of their working papers on green multipliers. So to finish, the work ahead of us is considerable. Modeling net zero energy transition pathways so as to inform policy making in the most comprehensive and objective manner. And I look forward to following this initiative together with my IAEA colleagues to support it as best we can. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Henri. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Maria. And thank you, Henri, again for giving your opening remarks. And so now I would just like to briefly go over the workshop objectives and goals and the agenda. I'll walk you through the agenda so that you know what to expect. And I will share my screen. So I assume you can see my screen now. And so it's, so just to briefly review, when we put together the workshop, we had certain goals and objectives in mind. We really wanted to use this as an opportunity to bring together a whole range of experts and representatives of countries participating in the Net Zero World Initiative, and experts from other organizations, international organizations, as well as domestic organizations here in the United States, to share their experience on energy system-wide modeling to specifically develop net zero pathways. And we've really been successful in this. And just a quick time, we were able to really attract a lot of interest in this workshop. So in total, we have 40 participants today joining us from 7 countries: Argentina, Chile, Egypt, India, Indonesia, Nigeria, and South Africa. And in fact, we had to turn a few away because it was already late in terms of registration. So we apologize to those folks in their absence. In addition to participants from those countries, we also have 40 additional experts from the Net Zero World Action Center, including 5 of the 10 national labs that support the initiative are present today, as well as the International Atomic Energy Agency. We have folks from the Department of Energy, as well as the State Department, the International Energy Agency in Paris, IRENA, the Stockholm Environment Institute, as well as several folks from academia. So we really have a really interesting mix of participants in this workshop and making this workshop really highly valuable. So one of the key goals was to really introduce relevant models and tools and methodologies that can be made available through the Net Zero World Action Center, and as well as the International Atomic Energy Agency, and to present and discuss those tools, present and discuss the data requirements that are behind these tools that are needed to run the models, as well as discuss analytical modeling capacity building assistance that can be provided through this new initiative that the Department of Energy stood up last year, as well as through the channels that Henri just briefly mentioned at the IAEA and that Mario will elaborate in just a little bit. So we have presentations. In order for us to sort of talk about this, we have presentations from several net zero world countries on their current modeling activities, results, and challenges. So we have several presentations later today from countries just giving us a brief overview of their status, where they're at in terms of their situation, the climate change situation, their modeling activities, and perhaps talking about some of the gaps that they may have or challenges in running these tools. We have a keynote address tomorrow from the International Energy Agency on their recent net zero by 2050 analysis, and we're fortunate to have the lead modeler from that report available to us tomorrow to present that. It's a really interesting study that was done, and I'm sure you will enjoy that presentation. And then we have a modeling overview, basically a higher level comparison of 4 relevant tools that we think are relevant to this kind of activity. Followed, that's tomorrow afternoon or tomorrow at the end of the day. And then that's followed by a deep dive on the 3rd day, where we have 4 of our modeling groups present those 4 tools in more detail. And then we wrap this up with a discussion on the continued country engagement, partner engagement that the Net Zero World Initiative and plans to engage in for the rest of this year. And so that's sort of the higher level layout of the workshop. And this just shows what comes next after the workshop. So the workshop, we sort of said that the workshop is really the first step in a multi-step process to build capacity and a peer learning process. And so this will be presented in more detail at the end of the workshop in the last session. But just that you know, this workshop is just the beginning, and it will be followed with multiple activities leading up to a face-to-face, in-person workshop here at Argonne in Chicago in September, and then all the way leading up to COP27. So just a brief recap of the agenda. I know all of you should have received the agenda, but I just want to briefly step through this so we know what to expect next. So we're just wrapping up essentially the first session, where we had all the welcome remarks from our speakers. So the next session will be a small breakout groups, and I will talk about this just in a few minutes, what to expect there. Then that will be followed by 2 speakers. The executive director of the Net Zero World Action Center, Ron Benioff, as well as Mario Todd from IAEA, will provide more details on the initiative, the Net Zero World Initiative, as well as the IAEA's Planning and Economic Studies section. And then we'll have 2 speakers from 2 countries give us overviews of their situation. And that session is facilitated by Meredith Evans. Today we will be hearing from Indonesia, as well as from Nigeria. Tomorrow, that will be followed again with another presentation session from countries. And that session will be facilitated by Sadie Cox. And we'll hear from Argentina, Chile, and perhaps from Egypt. And then that's followed then by the keynote address from the IAEA, Brent Warner, the lead model on this net zero study. And again, it's a really compelling study that should be of interest to all of us. So then we're wrapping up the day tomorrow with a summary of the 4 different of the tools that are available to do decarbonization studies, and with sort of like a little bit of high level comparison of the 4 tools that will be presented. Then on day 3 in a more deeper dive, and that session then will be facilitated by Nan and Clarice, 2 of the technical team leads at the Net Zero World Action Center, and those tools will be. You'll hear more about those are GCAM, Times, Message, and Lead. And then we'll have a wrap up with just laying out the follow-up, the next steps over the next 6 to 12 months, as well as then just a brief course wrap up. So that's sort of like what's going to follow for the next 3 days. And so now the next step, right now, we wanted to give an opportunity to introduce yourself briefly to your Net Zero World colleagues. Given that we have 80 people, we obviously can't go around the table to introduce each of ourselves. So what we'll do is we decided to do this a little differently, and we run this as a virtual speed networking session. So what will happen in just a few moments, we'll randomly assign you to one of 10 breakout rooms. And in those breakout rooms, you'll likely meet 5, 6, 7, 8 people, and you will be in those rooms for about 5 minutes or so. And then once the 5 minutes wrap up, you'll be reassigned again randomly to another random set of participants. So once you're in a breakout, we'll ask, right, your microphones and your cameras are turned off right now. So we want to ask you and encourage you to turn on your microphones and to turn on your cameras for that entire session. And so once you speak up, you have probably less than a minute or so. So just briefly introduce yourself, say your name, say your country, you talk about the organization that you're from, perhaps your work background, your experience in this field, perhaps the expectation for this course, and if you have time for a quick fun fact on hobbies, on personal interests. So remember, you'll have probably less than a minute. And so we'll do this 3 or 4 times, and then we'll come back and take a break. So with this, I think I'll ask Gun to start the